Okay, it just occurred to me, another artistic director with another milestone, 20
Woo,
years for
20
Mad
years.
Rhythms. We've got Bril Barrett here with us. You're half as old as Mark Morris Dance Group.
And hopefully I can have the longevity to make it that long as well.
Yeah, let's hope. Let's hope. Well, since it's a milestone and we have you here, I wanted to kind of get a short origin story of Mad Rhythms. How did it start?
Oh, short and origin story. That's gonna be hard for me, but I'll try. Matt Rhythms basically started out as a volunteer thing. I wanted to pretty much most of my life. I wanted to be a professional tap dancer. That was like my goal, and that was it. That was the end of the goal. Um, but as I started working as a professional, I noticed when I would get out on the road and travel and come back, it was almost like starting over again. Like I would have to call schools and I would have to reacquaint and so I started thinking about like how cool it would be to have a home to leave and then be able to come back to. At the same time, my little brother, J Bo Dixon, I know he probably was like, oh, he said my name, was he was growing up as a young man, a young black man on the west side of Chicago and starting to get in a little trouble. My mom would call me and say, hey, your brother's getting into some trouble. He didn't come in or whatever. So I was like, I need to, when I get off the road this next time, I need to pull him close to me as well. So the combination of wanting to create a home, wanting to take my brother under my wing, that was kind of the unofficial start of Mad Rhythms. It was just like a volunteer thing I did with young black boys when I was teaching at the Semi-Diet School of Theater, and I would just like try to give them the same kind of experiences or exposure to the art form that were given to me by my teachers. And so that thing kind of went on, and it was just a boys program for just trying to help them out. And then my sister, the great Star Dixon, was like, why I gotta be all boys? And I didn't really have an answer for that. So Star was the first not boy member of Mad Rhythms. And all this was officially before it had a name. And so it was just this volunteer thing. We went out whenever I would have a show, I would just bring the kids with me. They would get on stage and do a little something kind of like my own opening act until people started seeing them and then say, hey, can you bring them? And then they started asking, can you bring them? And that was kind of how we started out. And then I was talking back and forth with Trey Dumas, who he and I were in a group together. And I said, man, I think I want to start an actual group, like turn this thing into an actual company. But I want you to, I want you to be down with me. And so together, Martin Trey Dumas and I founded Mad Rhythms, and it started out with us and a bunch of kids, and now 20 years later, it is what it is.
Yeah, look at you now. And let's talk about the name for a minute. Making a difference dancing, it has such intention behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds to, it puts activism almost right at the core of
Mm-hmm.
what you're doing. And you already talked about it a little bit with J-Bo there. What was it? What was that part of the mission?
That part of the mission was literally like, I'm born and raised on the west side of Chicago, North Lawndale community. One of the, when you hear about violence and shooting and that kind of stuff in Chicago, Inglewood and North Lawndale are the two communities that you hear about a lot. And so growing up in that kind of a situation, like tap for me was more than just something to do. It was a lifeline. And by that, I mean, like, I feel like it saved my life. Most of the guys I grew up with, they either ended up in jail, dead, or addicted to drugs. Like it was not good stuff because we didn't have a lot of opportunity. So tap was my lifeline, and so I made sure that when I started Mad Rhythms, I wanted it to be a lifeline for other young people coming from underserved, under-resourced communities like the one I came from, and so putting that intent into the name, making a difference, dancing rhythms. Um, Literally just said we're going to always stay connected and stay in service to our community, no matter how good or how big we get, or where we go as a professional tap dance company. There will always be programs and situations that we stay connected in our community.
And that seems to have continued and is still the case.
It is.
And how over this 20 years, how has that activism changed or not? I mean, especially in this moment now, how is Mad Rhythms kind of functioning within the bigger realm of what's going on here in our city and here in our country?
Well, I can say the biggest part is creating what we like to call the studio to stage pipeline. When a lot of people start learning about, like in the black community, when we start learning about prisons and incarceration rates, one of the things that you hear about is the school to prison pipeline. And that is literally, they build prisons based on the test scores of kids in third and fourth grade. So they're already anticipating if they don't do well here, they're going to not do well here. And so I wanted to do the reverse of that. When we started doing a lot of our teen programs and we started having success and getting teens interested, a lot of them didn't see where they could take it after they were too old or they aged out. And so it was like, well, I can't convince you to commit your resources and your life to this thing if I can't also show you what can happen or what can come from or be the result of that committal. So we created, so between the Mad Rhythms Tap Academy, which is where we take students from novice to professional. And then we have Mad Rhythms Bronzeville, which is our teen company, which is 14 to 18-year-olds. Then we have the Mad Rhythms Apprentice Program that is 18 and up. And then we have the professional company. So a child can literally start off and go from novice to professional company all without leaving our building on the south side of Chicago in the Brownsville neighborhood. So to me, that means for us, for everything the dance gave me, it's my way of giving back by creating something that is an outline and a guideline and a pipeline to getting our young people positive alternatives all throughout their lives into being professionals.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the academy and the pipeline. And you share the dance in so many ways, not just that, but the community tap jams,
Mm-hmm.
and then also the performances. In what sort of ways, describe the choreography? Like, what can people expect to see at a Mad Rhythms performance?
Well, and that's interesting. I'm glad you asked that question because you can expect to see various voices coming together in various ways. I mean, in the early years of the company, obviously the most of the choreography was me and Trey. We were the adults and the founders and the co-founders, and we created it. And then I remember Jamani was the first one to start coming up and having a voice, Jamani Taylor. And so then he started adding choreography. Then we had a wonderful piece we did from George Patterson, but these were all people within the family. So now when you see the direction that Mad Rhythms has gone, I'm proud to sit back and watch this awesome stuff that Star Dixon is putting on the company. And right now, Donetta Jackson has been dropping bombs on us. Like it's just beautiful. Tristan Bruins has been adding choreography in. So now, one, that was a humbling step for me to even be able to step back and say, you know what, y'all got this. Like I can do a piece if I want to, but there is no necessity anymore because you all have taken his voice and the statements that and the stuff we want to put out there, and you all are paying tradition and homage to the art form with your excellence, but also adding your voice to the collective voice. So Mad Rhythms is very, like, our identity is very diverse. Literally, like, our rhythmic approach is very diverse. I think there's some commonality that may weave throughout, but so you'll see. I mean, we did a show that was dedicated to Nina Simone. I mean, that was my baby, and I worked on that for like 3 years, and so that was one presentation. And then we did a show last year called Journey of the Rhythm Through the Dance, and that was kind of like a telling of the story of tap through music and genres, and that was Stars Baby. And now we're working on a piece for Donetta. Like, Donetta's I'm trying not to let the cat out the bag too soon, but when y'all see Donetta Jackson's, like, entree onto the scene with her choreography, man, that's all I gotta say.
Well, and it sounds like, that's exactly it. Like, you're doing your job well if there's room for all of these different voices and different artistic visions within one company.
Mm. Thank you, and that's been the goal, and that's kind of been the precipice since the beginning. So just trying to stay with it.
So I'm curious, I don't know if you were watching anything earlier, but the Sammy Dyer School has come up a few times. We
Mm-hmm.
had Ted Levy here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I know that you came out of Sammy Dyer
Yeah.
too. Is there something that you might have learned from your teachers there that you're applying as director of Mad Rhythms?
Um, yes. So in a nutshell, yes. And I only paused because I was trying to figure out which one I wanted to pinpoint. Because the Sammy Dyer School of Theater, like, well, first of all, I have a full circle story in relationship with the school. It's where I went as a child. It's one of the first schools I taught at as an adult and a professional. And now, as an artistic director and an artistic director of a space, they are our arts partner in residence. So bringing them into something like that I now have created is it was a real full circle moment for me. And what I noticed then that goes back to when I was a child on Saturdays, even pre-pandemic, Miss Foster, Miss Muriel Foster, who has been, been heading it for quite some time now. I would walk in the office and just see kids sitting at her feet listening to these stories of when her and the Dyerettes toured with Sammy Davis Jr. and they opened up for this person and that person and I remember Miss Foster was telling me a story and like they were in the car riding and Sammy Davis Jr. leaned his head on her shoulder and she told him, "Boy, get your greasy head off my shoulder." Like and she's telling these stories like, "Oh, this is just part of me growing up," and I'm sitting there like, first of all, you met Sammy Davis Jr. First of all, you work with him. Second of all, you talk to him like that. Third of all, you know what I mean? Like, so it's like, so that kind of like that connection, the Dyerettes to the Vashinettes. Like, I remember when I was a student, and even when I was a teacher, Shirley Hall Bass was like when it was time for show, like Sammy Dyer, and that's it. Like Sammy Dyer didn't do recitals. That school has never been known for doing recitals. They always called them theatrical productions. And so I like even when I started the Mad Rhythms Tap Academy, I was like, we don't do recitals. So like I literally took that and connected with it. And immediately, but the warm up that I use and that we use at the Tap Academy for most of our classes, it's the Idella Reed Davis warm up, which she created for the Sammy Dyer School of Theater. So like, there's all these links and connections, and the biggest one is that Mad Rhythms started as a volunteer program inside of Sammy Dyer. Like Miss Foster was the first one to kind of give me the space and say, "This is when there are no classes. Whatever you're trying to do, you can do it here." And if it wasn't for that, there would be no Mad Rhythms.
Yeah, I mean, Sammy Dyer School of the Theater has just cultivated such
Mm-hmm.
great tap dancers.
Yeah,
Literally for
for generations,
generations. Yeah,
no
yeah,
doubt.
yeah. And talking to you, I have no fear that that is going to change anytime soon.
Nah, we ain't letting it.
Good. Good. Well, Brill, it's always great to talk tap with you. I miss dancing with you.
Yeah, I can't wait till we can be back on the wood together.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much for your time today, and good luck with everything yet to come.
My pleasure, my honor. See you in the next 20 years.
Yep.